Once upon a time, in the bustling city of Lagos, where yellow Danfo buses screamed along potholed roads and the smell of roasted corn mixed with exhaust fumes, there lived a man the people only knew as the Madman of Oberland. His real name was Chijoke Williams. He was tall, with wild, uncombed hair that blew in the Harmattan wind, and a beard that had forgotten the mercy of a razor. Yet, beneath his rags, his eyes carried a sharpness that unsettled those who dared to look too long. Children would laugh and run whenever he appeared. Women crossed the street when he staggered by, and Okada riders shouted curses at him for blocking the road. But what no one knew was that Chijoke was not born mad. He had once been a promising young man, the son of a humble carpenter in Enugu. He carried dreams brighter than the neon lights of Lagos Island. A dream to build, to create, to lift his family out of poverty. But tragedy has a way of breaking even the strongest men. Every evening, when the sun burned orange across the lagoon, Chijoke would sit under the giant billboard at Oberland Bridge and hum a song. The same song every time. A soft Igbo lullaby, the kind a mother sings to her baby. People thought it was madness. But that song was his only anchor, the last thread connecting him to the life he once had, before the fire, before the betrayal, before he lost everything. It was on one of these evenings that fate began to weave its dangerous thread. The rains had just ended. The air smelled of wet earth and fried akara from the street sellers. And at that very moment, across the city in a glass mansion in Ikoyi, a young woman sat by her window in a wheelchair, watching the same rain with tears in her eyes. Her name was Amarachi Johnson, the only daughter of Lagos billionaire, Chief Kenneth Johnson. Amarachi was beautiful, skin smooth like polished mahogany, eyes soft but filled with sorrow. 2 years earlier, a car accident had left her paralyzed from the waist down. Once the jewel of Lagos society, a girl who danced at every wedding and laughed at every party. Now she sat silent, trapped in her chair, forgotten by her friends, pitted by strangers. Her father brought her every comfort money could buy. Nurses, therapists, imported equipment. But none could bring back her legs. None could return her joy. And so Amarachi, like Chijoke, had learned the cruel rhythm of loss. That night, as the city lights flickered and generators roared against the silence, something strange happened. Amarachi had a dream. In the dream, she saw a man dancing wildly in the rain. His clothes were torn, his hair matted, but his movements were full of life. She recognized the place. It was Oberland, under the giant billboard. She couldn't see his face clearly, but she heard the same lullaby he hummed. The sound echoed inside her chest, pulling at her heart like a forgotten memory. She woke up trembling, her palms sweating. "Mama," she whispered to the housemaid who slept by her door. "Who is the madman at Oberland?" The maid looked at her in surprise. "Madam, everyone knows him. They say he lost his mind after his whole family died. Some say he was cursed." "Why?" Amarachi did not answer. She only stared out the window again, her heart beating too fast. Something in her spirit whispered that her life and his were about to collide. The next day, Chief Kenneth prepared to fly to Abuja for a business meeting. He kissed his daughter on the forehead. "Amara, my jewel, I'll be back tomorrow. Don't stress yourself. Call the nurse if you need anything." She nodded, but her mind was far away. As soon as he left, she asked the driver to take her for a ride. For the first time in months, she wanted to see Lagos beyond the glass walls of her father's mansion. And so, by the turn of destiny, Amarachi's black SUV rolled into Oberland that afternoon. The streets were alive with shouting traders and clattering pans. Then she saw him, Chijoke. He was dancing in the middle of the street, spinning under the harsh sun, his bare feet slapping the wet ground as if he felt no pain. The lullaby floated from his lips, raw and haunting. Amarachi gasped. It was the man from her dream. The driver frowned. "Madam, should I chase him away? These madmen are dangerous." But Amarachi shook her head. Her eyes never left him. "No, don't touch him." As Chijoke spun and staggered closer to the SUV, their eyes met for the first time. For a moment, time froze. The noise of Lagos disappeared. It was just her in her chair, him in his rags, two broken souls staring at each other through the glass. Then, without warning, Chijok stopped dancing. He raised his finger slowly, pointed directly at Amarachi, and shouted in a cracked but powerful voice, You are the one I have been waiting for." The driver panicked. "Madam, let's go." He hit the accelerator. The SUV lurched forward, and in seconds the madman was swallowed by the crowd behind them. Amarachi's hands trembled in her lap. She whispered to herself, "What does he mean, waiting for me?" That night she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, his finger pointing, his words echoing. And in a mansion of wealth and marble, the paralyzed daughter of a billionaire began to cry, because for the first time in years, she felt a dangerous thing stirring inside her heart. She felt hope, but she didn't know that this hope would drag her into a story of madness, betrayal, and a secret her father never wanted revealed. The morning after that strange encounter at Oberland, Amarachi sat quietly in her wheelchair, staring at the garden of her father's Ikoyi mansion. The hibiscus flowers glowed red under the rising sun, but her eyes were far away. Her maid, Ngozi, brought her a tray of pap and akara, but she barely touched it. Ngozi frowned. "Madam Amara, you've not eaten since yesterday. What is troubling you?" Amarachi sighed. That madman. He looked at me as if he knew me." Ngozi shuddered. "Don't think about him, madam. People like that, they see visions, they talk nonsense. Some even say evil spirits use their mouths. Forget it." But Amarachi could not forget. The way his finger pointed at her, the certainty in his cracked voice, the song that echoed in her chest. It was all too real. That afternoon, her father's nurse came with another round of physiotherapy. Amarachi endured the painful stretches, the electric shocks meant to wake nerves that refused to move. She gritted her teeth, sweating, but the disappointment was always the same. Her legs remained lifeless, mocking her efforts. When the nurse left, Amarachi broke down in tears. She whispered into her hands, "God, is this my life now? Am I to die sitting in this chair?" Her sobs were interrupted by a faint sound outside the window. She lifted her head, listening. It was a song, a familiar song, the lullaby. Her heart raced. Wheeling herself forward, she pushed open the window, and there he was, Chijok, standing right outside the mansion's high gate, his hair wild in the wind, his mouth humming that haunting melody. The security guards had already noticed him. "Oga madman, get out from here," one shouted, raising his baton. But Amarachi's voice cut through the air. "Don't touch him." The guards froze, shocked. Amarachi's eyes locked on Chijok's. He stopped humming. Slowly, he pressed his palms together, as though in prayer, and bowed his head toward her. Then, just as quickly, he ran off into the streets, disappearing between hawkers and okadas. The guards looked at each other. "This one na serious wala oh," one muttered. That evening, when her father returned from Abuja, Amarachi could not hold her tongue. "Daddy," she said softly, "do you know the madman at Oberland?" Chief Kenneth, who had been loosening his tie, froze for a second. His eyes flickered, then he forced a laugh. "Madman? Amara, Lagos is full of them. Why ask me such nonsense?" But Amarachi's gaze was sharp. She saw the way his hand trembled slightly as he reached for his glass of brandy. She saw the shadow that crossed his face. "Because he pointed at me yesterday. He said I was the one he was waiting for." The glass nearly slipped from Chief Kenneth's hand. He recovered quickly, clearing his throat. "My dear, don't listen to the ravings of lunatics. They speak without sense. Promise me you'll never go near that man again. Promise me." But Amarachi remained silent. She could see the fear in her father's eyes, and that silence frightened Chief Kenneth even more than words. Later that night, as the mansion grew quiet, Amarachi lay awake in her bed. Her father's warning echoed in her mind, but so did Chijok's voice. Her curiosity grew stronger than her fear. She made a decision. The next morning, she instructed the driver secretly, "Take me back to Oberland, But don't tell my father. The driver hesitated. Madam, this is dangerous. Please. Amarachi's voice cracked with desperation. I need to see him again. And so, for the second time, her black SUV rolled through the chaos of Oberland. Hawkers balanced trays of oranges on their heads. Preachers shouted about repentance at the roadside, and the smell of roasted plantain filled the air. Then they saw him. Chijok. He was sitting under the giant billboard, humming to himself, tracing shapes in the dirt with his finger. Amarachi's heart pounded. She lowered the window. Chijok, she whispered, though she had never spoken his name before. His head shot up. His eyes widened, as though he'd been waiting for this exact moment. He rose slowly, his ragged clothes flapping. He approached the SUV, each step deliberate, his gaze never leaving hers. When he reached her window, he bent low and whispered words that made her blood run cold. Your legs will not move until the truth moves in your father's house. Amarachi gasped. What truth? What are you saying? But Chijok only smiled faintly, lifted his face to the sky, and began to dance again. Twirling, spinning, laughing through cracked lips as the crowd gathered, pointing and mocking. The driver panicked. Madam, let's leave before trouble starts. Amarachi's voice shook as she cried out, Chijok, tell me what you mean. What truth? But he did not answer. He only danced harder, as if possessed, his bare feet splashing the muddy ground. Then suddenly, in the middle of his wild spinning, he collapsed. The crowd screamed. Some laughed. Others ran forward. Amarachi's hands flew to her mouth. And for the first time since her accident, she felt a surge of strength in her arms as she tried to push herself out of the SUV, desperate to reach him. The crowd in Oberland swarmed around the fallen madman. Some jeered, some laughed, some shook their heads in pity. "Na so madness day kill person," one traitor shouted. "Leave am, a beg. Better make we carry am comet from the road," another said. But Amarachi's heart thundered in her chest. She couldn't sit still. For the first time in months, she pushed herself forward, leaning out of the SUV window, her voice breaking through the noise. "Please, don't hurt him. Let me see him." The crowd turned in surprise. Who was this rich woman shouting for a madman? The tinted SUV, the driver in suit. It was clear she didn't belong here. Two young boys, curious and bold, helped clear a path. Chijok lay on the muddy ground, his chest rising and falling rapidly. His lips moved, as though whispering words only he could hear. Amarachi's trembling hand reached out from the SUV. "Chijok, can you hear me?" Slowly, his eyes fluttered open. He looked at her and gave a weak, broken laugh. "So, you came." The driver was panicking now. "Madam, this is too much. Let's go before people start recording videos. Your father will finish me." But Amarachi shook her head fiercely. "No, I need to know." Chijok's cracked hand stretched towards her, his voice hoarse but steady. "Do you know why I dance?" She shook her head, her eyes filling with tears. "Because," he coughed, "every step I take is a fight against the lie that destroyed me. The same lie that is destroying you." Her breath caught. "What lie?" But before he could answer, the crowd erupted. A team of uniformed men pushed through, two of Chief Kenneth's private security guards. Their faces were hard, their voices commanding. "Move away. Everybody clear. This man is dangerous." They grabbed Chijok roughly, lifting him from the ground. He struggled weakly, but he was no match for their strength. Amarachi shouted, "Stop! Leave him! Don't touch him!" But the guards ignored her. One of them turned to the driver. "Olga said to bring Madam home immediately. This place is not safe for her." Amarachi's eyes widened. "My father sent you?" "Yes, madam." Her heart sank. So her father already knew she would come here. He was watching her. As they dragged Chijok away, his voice rose above the chaos, desperate and raw. "Amarachi, find the box. The box your father hides in his study. Inside it, the truth." The guards slapped him to shut him up. One hissed, "Shut that mouth, you mad goat!" Amarachi's world spun. The box? What box? Her father's study? The SUV door slammed shut, and the driver sped away, leaving behind the shouting crowd and the sight of Chijok being forced into a waiting van. Tears streamed down Amarachi's face. She clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms. For the first time in 2 years, her paralysis wasn't the only prison she felt. Now she knew her father was hiding something. Something tied to her legs, to this madman, to her entire life. That night, the mansion felt colder than usual. Amarachi sat alone in her room, the silence pressing against her chest. Every tick of the clock sounded like thunder. Her father was downstairs, drinking brandy with a visiting politician, laughing too loudly, pretending nothing was wrong. But Amarachi could not rest. Her mind replayed Chijok's words. Find the box. When the mansion finally grew quiet, she wheeled herself slowly down the corridor, her hands trembling as she gripped the wheels. She stopped outside her father's study, a room she had not entered since the accident. Her heart raced. She turned the knob. The door creaked open. The room smelled of leather and cigar smoke. Books lined the shelves, files stacked neatly on the desk. But her eyes went straight to the corner, where a heavy wooden chest sat, half hidden behind an armchair. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She rolled forward. Her fingers brushed the chest's surface. It was locked. Amarachi whispered to herself, "This must be it. This is the box." But before she could search further, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Strong, heavy, deliberate. She froze. The door handle turned. And standing there, silhouetted against the dim corridor light, was Chief Kenneth Johnson, her father. His eyes burning with fury she had never seen before. Chief Kenneth stood in the doorway, his tall frame casting a shadow across the study. His eyes narrowed when he saw Amarachi by the chest. For a long moment, silence filled the room, so heavy it could crush the air. "Amara." His voice was calm, too calm, the kind of calm that hides storms. "What are you doing here?" Amarachi's throat went dry. She tried to speak, but her words trembled. "Daddy, I was just what?" He snapped, stepping closer, his shoes clicking sharply against the polished floor. "Looking through my things? Sneaking around my study in the middle of the night?" Her hands gripped the wheels of her chair. "I only wanted to know the truth." His jaw tightened. "What truth?" The madman said. She hesitated, then blurted out. "He said my legs will never move until the truth in this house is revealed. He told me about a box in your study." Chief Kenneth's face drained of color. His hand, still holding a half-finished glass of brandy, shook violently. In a flash of rage, he hurled the glass against the wall, where it shattered into 1,000 glittering pieces. "You listen to a lunatic on the streets?" His voice thundered through the mansion. "A man with no home, no name, no sanity? And you dare come here accusing me?" Amarachi's tears welled up, but she refused to back down. "Daddy, I saw him collapse. I saw how he looked at me, how he called my name. This is not madness. He knows something about me, about you, and I will not rest until I find out." Her words struck like daggers. Chief Kenneth's chest rose and fell, his anger barely contained. He stepped forward, towering over her, and his voice dropped to a cold whisper. "Amara, I have given you everything. Doctors from abroad, therapists, comfort, protection. And this is how you repay me? By chasing after a street rat's lies." His eyes darted toward the chest. For a brief second, panic flickered across his face. Then, with a sharp move, he kicked the chest away from her reach. "Whatever nonsense he told you dies tonight. Do you understand me?" Amarachi flinched at his words. She had never seen her father like this. So shaken, so desperate. "Why are you so afraid of me opening it, Daddy?" she whispered, voice trembling but steady. "What's inside that chest?" For a moment, Chief Kenneth's lips parted, as though he might answer. But then he turned away, pacing back and forth like a lion trapped in a cage. His hands clutched his head. You don't know what you are asking for, Amara. Some truths are heavier than death. Her tears streamed freely now. Then let me carry it. Because the weight of not knowing is killing me already. His shoulders sagged. For the first time, Chief Kenneth looked less like a billionaire and more like a broken man. But then the fire returned to his eyes. He straightened his suit, his voice hard again. You will stay out of this. That is my final word. And without another glance, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The echo rang through the mansion like thunder. Amarachi sat in the silence, shaking. Her gaze returned to the chest. She could feel it pulling at her, whispering secrets. She knew now more than ever that she could not stop. The next morning, the mansion was unusually tense. Chief Kenneth left early, his convoy of SUVs roaring out of the gates. Amarachi waited until the house quieted, then wheeled herself back to the study. The chest was still there. Its lock glinted in the morning light. She ran her fingers over it, whispering, I will open you, no matter what it takes. But before she could attempt anything, Ngozi, her maid, entered quietly. Madam, are you sure you want to go down this road? She asked softly. Amarachi turned to her sharply. Ngozi, do you know what's in this box? The maid hesitated, fear flashing in her eyes. Her voice dropped to a whisper. All I know is that your father said if anyone ever touches that chest, the whole family will be ruined. The words sent a shiver down Amarachi's spine. Then it is true. He is hiding something. Ngozi swallowed hard. Madam, listen to me. Secrets buried too deep. When they come out, they destroy everything. Please, let it go. But Amarachi shook her head, determination burning through her tears. No, can't let it go. Because maybe, just maybe, the truth inside will give me back my legs. Her voice trembled, but her heart was firm. She turned back to the chest, her hands shaking as she tugged at the lock. And then, without warning, the sound of a key turning echoed in the corridor. Heavy footsteps approached. Ngozi's eyes widened in fear. Your father, he's back early. The doorknob twisted. Amarachi's blood ran cold. The study door creaked open slowly. Amarachi's breath caught in her throat. She expected to see her father storming in with rage. But instead, it was not him. It was Mama Doyen, the old housekeeper who had served the Johnson family for decades. Her back was slightly bent, her wrapper tied firmly around her waist, and her hands carried the faint smell of palm oil from the kitchen. Madam Amara, she whispered, glancing nervously at the chest. Why are you here? Relief washed over Amarachi, but it was quickly replaced by suspicion. She straightened in her chair. Mama Doyen, do you know what is inside this box? The old woman's eyes flickered with something. Fear, guilt, memory. She closed the door quietly behind her and leaned closer. My child. Some boxes are not meant to be opened. Amarachi's frustration burst out. That's what everyone keeps saying. My father, Ngozi, even you. Why is everyone protecting this chest? What is so terrible inside it? Mama Doyen wrung her hands, her voice low and trembling. I should not say this, but since the day of the accident, your father has guarded that box like his own life. He forbade us to touch it, even to clean near it. One night, I heard him weeping inside the study, whispering names I did not recognize. Names, Amara. Names that sounded like curses. Amarachi's pulse quickened. What names? But before Mama Doyen could answer, a loud voice echoed from the courtyard outside. Where is she? Where is Amarachi? Her father. The old woman's face paled. She hurried to the door. I beg you, child. Leave this matter before it consumes you. She slipped out just as Chief Kenneth's heavy footsteps thundered closer. Amarachi's hands shook. She wheeled herself backward, away from the chest, pretending she had only come to look at the bookshelves. The door burst open. Chief Kenneth entered, his face flushed with fury. 2 security guards followed, their eyes cold and watchful. Amara, he barked. How many times must I tell you? Stay away from this room. I was only reading, she lied softly, but her voice cracked under his glare. His jaw tightened. He gestured to the guards. Lock this study. No one enters again except me. Do you understand? The guards nodded and moved to secure the chest with a heavy chain. Amarachi's heart sank as she watched the box. Her only hope of answers, sealed away right in front of her eyes. Her father leaned close, his face inches from hers, his voice a dangerous whisper. Amara, if you love me at all, you will bury this madness. That lunatic you saw in Abilend is nothing. Forget him. Forget his words. But Amarachi held his gaze, her voice shaking but firm. I can't forget, because his madness feels more like truth than your silence. Her words cut him deep. His hand trembled in the air as though he wanted to slap her, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. Instead, he turned sharply, storming out of the study, his guards following close behind. When the door slammed shut again, Amarachi broke down in tears. Her body shook with sobs, but beneath the grief was something fiercer. Resolve. That night, as the city of Lagos hummed with nightlife, horns blaring, suya roasting, music drifting from roadside bars, Amarachi sat in her room, staring at the ceiling. Sleep would not come. Then she heard a sound, a faint tapping at her window. Her heart raced. She wheeled herself closer, pulling back the curtain. And there, in the shadows of the garden, stood Chijok. His face was gaunt, his hair matted, but his eyes burned with wild determination. He lifted a finger to his lips, silence. Amarachi's breath caught. How had he escaped? How did he find her here again? He leaned closer to the glass and whispered, just loud enough for her to hear. If you want to know the truth, meet me at the old railway line tomorrow at dawn. Come alone. Then, before she could react, he melted back into the darkness, vanishing into the night. Amarachi's hands trembled on her wheels. Fear and hope tangled inside her chest. The old railway line was dangerous, abandoned, crawling with whispers of thieves and ghosts. But she knew, deep in her heart, that this meeting would change everything. And for the first time since her accident, Amarachi whispered into the silence. Yes, I will go. The night was long. Amarachi barely closed her eyes. Every creak of the mansion felt louder than usual, every shadow heavier. The thought of the madman's face at her window burned in her mind. His words replayed again and again. Meet me at the old railway line tomorrow at dawn. By the time the first cock crowed in Ikoyi, she was already dressed. A plain wrapper tied across her lap, a shawl draped over her shoulders. She wheeled herself quietly through the corridors, careful not to wake the sleeping house. The guards outside were dozing in their chairs, the hum of their radios masking the faint roll of her wheelchair. Her driver, Michael, was waiting by the SUV, eyes heavy with sleep. He frowned when he saw her. Madam Amara, where are you going this early? Just drive, she whispered, and tell no one, not even my father. Michael hesitated. But madam, the old railway line, that place is dangerous. Thieves, area boys. Amarachi's eyes glistened with determination. Please, Michael, I must go. And though every bone in his body told him no, the loyalty in his heart made him nod. He opened the door and helped her inside. The drive was quiet. Lagos was still half asleep. Only the call of the muezzin and the rattling of early danfos broke the silence. The SUV rolled past empty stalls, quiet streets, and finally into the desolate stretch of the abandoned railway line near Ibut Meta. Rusting train carriages lay like corpses, graffiti scrawled across their sides. The air smelled of smoke and damp earth. Crows perched on broken poles, cawing harshly. Stay in the car, Amarachi instructed softly. Michael gritted his teeth. If anything happens, she cut him off gently. Nothing will happen. He sighed and nodded. Amarachi wheeled herself out, the uneven ground shaking her chair as she pushed forward. Her breath came in short gasps. Then she saw him. Chijok stood by the tracks, his ragged clothes fluttering in the morning breeze. He looked calmer now, almost solemn, as if the madness had drained out of him with the night. His eyes locked on hers, and he nodded once. You came, he said softly. Yes, she whispered, her voice trembling. Now tell me, what truth are you hiding? What is in that box? Chijoke closed his eyes for a moment, as though summoning courage. When he spoke, his words were heavy. Amarachi, I was not always a madman. I was a man of dreams. I studied architecture at Unilag. I worked hard. I believed in tomorrow. But your father, his voice cracked. Your father took everything from me. Amarachi froze. My father. Chijoke's eyes burned with tears. Chief Kenneth Johnson. The man Lagos calls a billionaire. The man you call daddy. He was once my business partner. We built together, planned together. But when success came, he betrayed me. He stole what was mine. He destroyed my family. And when I fought back, he made me disappear. Amarachi shook her head. No, that's not possible. My father. Your father is not who you think he is. Chijoke's voice hardened. That box in his study. Inside are documents, evidence, letters. Proof that his wealth was built on blood and betrayal. Proof of what he did to me. Her lips trembled. And my legs? What do they have to do with this? Chijoke stepped closer, his eyes piercing hers. Because your accident was no accident. It was meant to silence you, to keep you from asking questions. Amarachi gasped, her chest tightening. What are you saying? He placed a trembling hand on her shoulder, his voice low and steady. Your father knows why you can't walk. And if the truth in that box comes out, you will understand everything. Your pain, your paralysis, even why fate brought you to me. Before she could speak, footsteps echoed from behind the train carriages. Voices, rough, angry. Over there. That's the madman. Amarachi spun around. A group of Chief Kenneth's guards, armed with batons and guns, emerged from the shadows. Their eyes locked on Chijoke with deadly intent. Michael leapt out of the SUV, shouting, Madam, get back inside. Chijoke's face turned pale, but he didn't run. He grabbed Amarachi's hand tightly. Listen to me. Don't let them silence me again. Open the box. The truth will set us both free. The guards rushed forward. Michael tried to block them, but he was shoved aside. One of the men raised his gun. Oga's orders. End this madness once and for all. Amarachi screamed, No! But before she could wheel herself forward, a deafening gunshot split the morning air. Chijoke's body jerked, and he fell. The gunshot echoed across the abandoned railway line, bouncing off rusted train carriages and into Amarachi's bones. For a moment, time stopped. Chijoke staggered backward, his eyes wide with shock. A dark stain spread across his ragged shirt. He collapsed onto the gravel, his body trembling, his lips moving as if still trying to speak. Amarachi's scream tore through the morning. New! Her voice cracked, raw and desperate. She tried to push her wheelchair forward, but the uneven tracks caught her wheels. She fell forward, scraping her palms on the ground. Tears mixed with dust as she clawed her way toward him. Chijoke, stay with me. Michael rushed to her side, lifting her up. Madam, please, let's go before they kill us too. But Amarachi shook her head violently, refusing to move. Her eyes locked on Chijoke, who lay gasping, his hand reaching weakly in her direction. She pulled herself closer until their fingers touched. His voice was faint, barely a whisper. Don't let him win. Open the box. And then his hand went limp. His eyes closed. Amarachi's heart shattered. She clutched his lifeless hand, sobbing uncontrollably. No, don't leave me. Please. The guards stepped closer, their leader snarling. Pick up, madam. Oga said she must not know anything. Michael stood protectively in front of Amarachi, his fists clenched though he was outnumbered. Over my dead body. The guards raised their guns again. But suddenly voices rang out. Leave them alone. From the alleys beyond the railway line, local traders and mechanics emerged, drawn by the gunshot. Women carrying trays, men in oil-stained shirts, Okada riders revving their bikes. They rushed forward, forming a human wall between Amarachi and the guards. "This is our area," one man shouted. "You no fit kill person here and walk free." The guards hesitated, looking around nervously. The crowd grew angrier, shouting, raising sticks and stones. The guards exchanged glances. Lagos mobs were not to be tested. "Retreat!" their leader hissed. "Now!" They slipped away into the shadows, their black SUV roaring off into the distance. Amarachi collapsed against Michael, her tears soaking his shirt. Around her, the crowd murmured. Some pointed at Chijok's body. "Ah, this poor man. I always knew his madness get meaning." "So not true. The big men day hide things." An old mechanic bent down, covering Chijok's body with a rag. "This man suffered too much. May his soul rest." Amarachi's hands shook as she touched Chijok's face one last time. Her heart screamed in silence. She had just begun to believe him, just begun to hope, and now he was gone. Michael pulled her close. "Madam, we must leave, before more of your father's men come." But Amarachi's eyes blazed through her tears. "No, Michael. I won't stop here. He died for the truth, and I will not let his death be wasted. We are going to open that box." Her words carried a strength that surprised even her. The crowd around her murmured in agreement. Some nodded, others whispered prayers. As Michael lifted her back into the SUV, Amarachi looked one last time at the railway line. The sun was rising higher now, casting golden light across Chijok's still body. In her heart, she heard his voice echoing, "Don't let him win. Open the box." She wiped her tears. For the first time since her accident, she felt a fire inside her that no paralysis could cage. On the drive back, she stared out the window, her mind racing. If her father could order men to kill Chijok, what else was he capable of? And what exactly lay inside that chest that made him tremble? By the time the SUV rolled through the mansion gates, Amarachi's resolve was steel. She would open that box, no matter the cost. But as they pulled up to the driveway, she froze. Standing at the entrance of the mansion, waiting for her, was Chief Kenneth himself. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with something darker than anger. He already knew where she had been, and he was ready. The black SUV rolled to a stop in front of the mansion. Michael's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Amarachi's breath caught in her throat. Chief Kenneth stood tall at the doorway, dressed in a crisp white kaftan, his agbada flowing around him like the robe of a king. His gold wristwatch glittered in the morning sun. But his eyes, those sharp, burning eyes, were fixed on her. "Bring her inside," he ordered, his voice calm but edged with steel. Michael hesitated. "Sir, she's tired." "Maybe. Now," Kenneth thundered, his voice shaking the compound walls. Two guards rushed forward and opened the SUV. Michael tried to shield Amarachi, but Kenneth's glare silenced him. Slowly, Amarachi wheeled herself out, her hands trembling. As she rolled toward her father, the silence was thick. The chirping of birds seemed muted, the rustling trees stilled. Even the guards shifted uncomfortably. Inside the mansion, the air smelled of cigar smoke and perfume. Kenneth closed the door himself, locking it with a heavy click. He turned to his daughter, his face unreadable. "Where were you?" His voice was low, too calm. Amarachi raised her chin. "You already know, Daddy. You sent your men there." His lips tightened. "And what did you see?" Her heart pounded, but she forced the words out. "I saw a man die, a man you called mad, a man who said you destroyed him. He told me you betrayed him, that you built your empire on his blood. And he told me there's proof. In the box you hide in your study." The room went cold. Kenneth's hands trembled slightly, but he quickly clasped them behind his back, pacing slowly like a lion circling prey. "That man was a liar," he said finally. "A dangerous liar who wanted to poison you against your own blood." Amarachi's tears welled. "Then why did you send men to kill him? If he was nothing but a liar, why were you so afraid of his words?" The question hung in the air like thunder. Kenneth stopped pacing. His eyes blazed with fury. "You dare speak to me like this?" His voice roared, echoing off the marble walls. After everything I've given you? Do you know who you are talking to? Amarachi's hands gripped her chair so tightly her knuckles turned white. I know exactly who I'm talking to. My father. The man who is supposed to protect me, not lie to me. The man who is supposed to heal me, not chain me in silence. Daddy, what are you hiding from me? For the first time, Kenneth's face cracked. Pain flickered across it, followed by guilt, then quickly buried under pride. He turned away, his voice breaking for a second. You don't understand. If you knew the truth, you would hate me. Amarachi's voice trembled. Then let me hate you, but don't let me live in darkness. The words cut him like a blade. His broad shoulders sagged. His chest rose and fell heavily. Finally, he turned, his eyes red with unshed tears. You want the truth? His voice was low, raw. Fine. Tonight, after dinner, I will open that box myself, and you will see what lies inside. But once you know, there will be no turning back. Amarachi's heart pounded. Hope and fear clashed inside her. She had pushed him to the edge. For the first time, he had promised to open the chest. But deep inside, she felt a chill. His voice carried something final, something dangerous, as though the truth inside that box was more explosive than a gunshot. That night could bring her freedom or her destruction. The mansion was too quiet that evening. Even the clinking of plates from the kitchen sounded like distant drums of war. Amarachi sat at the long dining table, her heart racing. A golden chandelier glowed above her, its light bouncing off the polished mahogany. Chief Kenneth entered slowly, dressed in a dark kaftan this time. His face was stern, his steps heavy. He didn't look like a father coming to dinner. He looked like a man marching toward judgment. He sat at the head of the table, opposite his daughter. Between them, steaming plates of jollof rice and peppered chicken were placed, but neither touched the food. The air was thick with unsaid words. Finally, Kenneth spoke, his voice low. Amara, I built this empire with my own hands. I clawed my way out of poverty. I fought men stronger than me, hungrier than me. Everything I have, I earned. And I did it for you. Amarachi's eyes burned. Then why does it feel like you've built walls around me instead of giving me wings? He closed his eyes briefly, as if in pain. Then he gestured to the guards at the corner. Bring the chest. Her breath caught. Moments later, 2 guards carried the heavy wooden chest into the dining hall, chains still wrapped around it. They set it down with a thud. The sound echoed like a heartbeat. Kenneth dismissed them with a sharp wave of his hand. Only father and daughter remained now, the chest sitting between them like a silent witness. Kenneth took a small key from his pocket. His fingers trembled as he held it. For a moment, he just stared at the lock, his face unreadable. Amarachi's voice cracked. Open it, Daddy. Please. He swallowed hard, inserted the key, and turned. The chain clinked as it fell away. The lid creaked open slowly, the sound like a cry from the past. Inside lay stacks of old documents, faded photographs, and a bundle of letters tied with twine. The air smelled of dust and secrets. Amarachi leaned forward, her chest heaving. What is this? Kenneth's hand shook as he lifted a photograph. He held it up, his eyes glistening. This is the man you saw in Oberland. Chijoke Williams. Once my closest friend. My partner. The man I betrayed. Amarachi's lips parted in shock. So it's true. His voice broke. Yes, I stole from him. I ruined him. And I have lived with that guilt every single day. Her tears flowed freely. Why, Daddy? Why would you do that to him? Kenneth slammed the photo down, his voice rising. Because I was desperate. Because I swore you would never grow up in poverty like I did. He had the plans, the talent, but I had the connections. I took everything and I built an empire. And I told myself it was for you. Amarachi's sobs filled the room. You destroyed his life, and now mine too. Kenneth's eyes darkened. You think I don't know? You think I don't wake up every night hearing his voice? That accident that paralyzed you? He stopped suddenly, biting his lip, as if he'd said too much. Amarachi's breath caught. What about the accident? He turned away, his fists clenched. Not tonight. She slammed her hand on the table. Tell me, was it an accident? Or did you have a hand in it? The silence that followed was unbearable. Finally, Kenneth whispered, "Some truths will destroy what little love you still have for me." Amarachi's chest tightened. "Then let me hate you, but don't let me live a lie." His face twisted in agony. He reached for the bundle of letters inside the chest and slid them across the table toward her. "Read these. Then you will know who your father really is." Her hands trembled as she reached for the letters. But before she could untie the twine, the sound of breaking glass shattered the moment. Both turned sharply. From the window, a shadowy figure leapt inside the mansion, landing on the marble floor with silent grace. Amarachi gasped. Kenneth's face went pale. It was not one of his guards. It was a stranger, masked, cloaked, moving with deadly purpose. And in his hand gleamed a knife. The chandelier light flickered against the blade in the intruder's hand. His breathing was steady, his steps silent, like a predator in the night. Amarachi froze, her hands clutched around the bundle of letters. Chief Kenneth's chair screeched against the marble as he stood abruptly, his voice booming. "Who are you? How dare you enter my house?" The masked man didn't answer. He moved closer, the knife catching the light. Kenneth grabbed a chair and hurled it across the room, shouting, "Guards! Guards!" But no one came. The silence of the mansion was chilling. The intruder tilted his head slightly, and for the first time he spoke. His voice was low, rough. "No one is coming. They've been handled." Amarachi's blood ran cold. Her father's face turned ashen. "Who sent you?" The stranger pointed the knife at Kenneth. "You already know." Amarachi's hands shook as she wheeled backward, her voice trembling. "Please, don't hurt us." The man's eyes flicked toward her. "You are not the target." Then, like lightning, he lunged at Kenneth. Kenneth grabbed a bottle from the table and smashed it against the knife, deflecting the first blow. Shards scattered across the floor. He shouted, "Amara, go. Leave now." But she couldn't. Her chair was caught against the carpet, and her heart screamed that leaving meant losing her only chance at truth. The intruder slashed again. Kenneth dodged, barely, his agbada tearing. The knife grazed his arm, blood staining the white fabric. He grunted in pain but fought back with his bare hands, grappling with the masked man. Amarachi shouted, "Stop! Please stop!" Her voice cracked, tears streaming down her cheeks. In the struggle, the chest toppled over, spilling papers, photographs, and documents across the floor. Letters flew like scattered secrets. Amarachi's eyes darted to one lying near her chair. She picked it up with trembling hands. It was addressed to Chijoke Williams. Her breath caught. She read the first line aloud through shaking lips. "Brother, forgive me, for I have done what no brother should ever do." Her heart pounded. "Brother!" She looked up at her father, horror spreading across her face. "Daddy, you and Chijoke?" Kenneth's eyes widened in shock, his grip faltering on the intruder. "Amara, no." But the masked man shoved him hard, sending him crashing into the dining table. The sound of shattering plates filled the air. Kenneth groaned, clutching his ribs. The intruder raised the knife high, aiming straight for Kenneth's chest. Amarachi's scream pierced the mansion. "No!" She threw herself forward, toppling from her wheelchair onto the cold floor. Crawling desperately, she grabbed the heavy lid of the chest and slammed it shut hard against the attacker's leg. The man cried out, stumbling, the knife clattering to the ground. Kenneth seized the moment. With a roar, he lunged, tackling the intruder to the floor. They rolled, fists flying, blood spilling, until finally the guards, roused at last, burst into the room. They pinned the masked man down, yanking off his hood. Gasps filled the air. It wasn't a stranger. It was one of Kenneth's own trusted men, his chief of security. Amarachi's eyes widened. Why would he attack you?" The man spat blood, his voice raw. "Because the lies of rich men cannot cover truth forever. You ruined lives, Chief. And now the same hands you fed are here to take from you." Kenneth staggered back, his chest heaving, his face pale. He looked at his daughter, who was still on the floor clutching the letter. Their eyes locked, hers demanding answers, his drowning in shame. She whispered through her tears, "Brother? Tell me the truth. Was Chi-Joke your brother?" The room fell silent. Kenneth's lips trembled. His eyes glistened. Finally, he nodded once, slowly, painfully. "Yes, Chi-Joke was my younger brother." The words cracked the world in half. Amarachi's cry broke from the depths of her soul. The madman who had danced in the streets, the man who had called her name, the man who had died at the railway line, was her uncle. The revelation hung in the air like smoke after a fire. Amarachi's tears soaked the letter in her hands. Her voice cracked, barely a whisper. "My uncle? All this time? The man you called mad? The man you destroyed? He was my own blood." Chief Kenneth staggered against the wall, clutching his side where blood seeped through his torn kaftan. His face was pale, his eyes hollow. "Yes, Amara. He was my younger brother. My only brother." The guards held the would-be assassin on the ground, but the man's bitter laugh filled the room. "You see? Even your daughter knows now. You buried your own brother alive in the streets of Lagos. Money made you madder than him." Kenneth roared, "Shut your mouth!" He lunged forward, but Amarachi's trembling voice stopped him cold. "No, Daddy. Don't silence him. You've silenced enough voices already. You will speak now. To me." Her words cut sharper than any knife. The great Chief Kenneth Johnson, the billionaire every Lagos newspaper praised, the man who ruled over men like a king, lowered his head before the broken girl in a wheelchair. His voice shook. "It began when we were young. Chi-Joke and I had nothing but dreams. He was the brain, the architect, the creator. I was the one who could talk, who could find men with money. We made plans together. But when opportunity came, His voice cracked. "I betrayed him. I stole his designs, his investors. I left him with nothing. And when he fought back, I used my influence to crush him. Contracts vanished. Loans disappeared. Even his family turned against him. I broke him until his mind shattered." Amarachi sobbed. "You ruined him, your own brother. And you let me believe he was just a madman." Kenneth's tears finally fell. "I told myself it was for you, Amara. That everything I did was to build a future for you. But the truth is, I was weak. I was greedy. And I destroyed my own blood to rise." The guards shifted uneasily. Even the house seemed to groan under the weight of his confession. Amarachi's voice trembled. "And my accident? Tell me the truth. Was it truly an accident?" Kenneth's face twisted in pain. He sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. His voice was muffled but heavy. "That night, you were never meant to be in that car. The brakes had been tampered with. It was meant for me." Amarachi's eyes widened. "What?" He lifted his head, his face broken. "One of Chi-Joke's old allies. Someone who wanted revenge. They came for me, but you, my only child, you took the blow. And when I saw you in that hospital bed, lifeless from the waist down, I swore never to let the truth come out. I thought silence would protect you. But silence only chained us both." Amarachi's tears flowed freely, her body shaking. "So I have lived paralyzed, carrying a wound that was never mine to carry." Kenneth reached for her, but she recoiled. "Don't touch me." The words cut deeper than any blade. Kenneth froze, his hand hanging in the air. The assassin on the floor sneered, spitting blood. "Justice has a way of finding even the richest men. You can't bury guilt forever, Chief. Your daughter is proof of that." Kenneth gestured for the guards to drag the man out. But before they left, Amarachi shouted, "No, leave him. Let him speak. Because every voice you tried to silence must be heard now." The guards hesitated, then obeyed. The intruder slumped in the corner, his breath ragged, but his eyes still burned with fire. Amarachi turned back to her father, her voice trembling but steady. "You killed your brother's dreams. You hid the truth. You let me suffer in silence. Daddy, do you realize the madness is not his, but yours? Kenneth broke into sobs, the sound shaking the walls. He sank to his knees in front of his daughter, his powerful frame crumbling. Amara, please, forgive me. I beg you. I am a broken man. The silence that followed was suffocating. Amarachi's hands clutched the letters tightly. She looked down at her father, her heart torn between love and hatred, blood and betrayal. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "How can I forgive a man who destroyed his brother and crippled his daughter with lies?" Kenneth bowed his head lower, his tears dripping onto the marble floor. And Amarachi knew the empire her father built was not made of gold, but of ashes. The mansion's grand dining hall was drowned in silence, broken only by Chief Kenneth's sobs. The once mighty billionaire was now on his knees, a man stripped bare by truth. Papers from the chest lay scattered like ghosts around them, whispering stories of betrayal. Amarachi's eyes burned with tears as she clutched the letters against her chest. She could hardly breathe. Her father's voice echoed in her ears. "Chijoke was my brother. Your accident was meant for me." Her heart ached. Rage and pity wrestled inside her. At last, she spoke, her voice low but sharp. "You built your empire on broken promises. You destroyed your own blood. You let me believe my suffering was fate, when it was born from your lies. Daddy, what do you want from me now? To sit here and pretend nothing has happened?" Kenneth lifted his tear-streaked face. "I want your forgiveness. I want you to understand that everything I did, every sin I committed, was to give you a life of comfort." Amarachi's voice cracked. "Comfort without truth is no life. Do you think my soul eats money, Daddy? Do you think my legs can be healed by marble floors and chandeliers?" He bowed his head lower, shame radiating from him. From the corner, the wounded assassin spat bitterly. "Forgiveness? Ha! What he deserves is to be dragged through the streets of Lagos, so the world can see the truth behind the billionaire's smile." Kenneth's guards moved to silence him, but Amarachi raised her trembling hand. "No, let him speak. His words sting because they are true." She turned to her father again, her voice steadier now, though her tears did not stop. "If you truly want forgiveness, then the truth must not stay in these walls. The world must know who Chijoke was, and what you did." Kenneth's body stiffened. His eyes widened in panic. "No, Amara, you don't understand. If this truth comes out, our family name will be destroyed. Everything I have built will crumble. The press, the board, the government, they will eat us alive." Amarachi leaned forward in her chair, her voice sharp as steel. "Then let it crumble, because what you built was never ours to keep." Kenneth staggered back as though struck. His hands shook violently. "You would betray your own father?" Amarachi's voice broke, her tears spilling harder. "You betrayed yourself long before I ever could." The weight of her words crushed him. He collapsed into a chair, his head buried in his hands. For a long moment, silence wrapped the room again. Amarachi stared at the letters in her lap. The ink was faded, but the pain was fresh. These words, her uncle's words, were the last fragments of a man the world had mocked as mad. Her hands shook as she whispered, "I will not let his memory die in the dust of Oberland. The world will know who Chijoke Williams was. The world will know what you did." Kenneth's head shot up, his eyes wild. "If you do this, you will destroy me." Amarachi's voice trembled but held firm. "No, Daddy. The truth will destroy the mask you wear. Not you." At that moment, thunder rumbled outside. Rain began to pour against the windows, heavy and relentless, as if the heavens themselves had joined in judgment. Kenneth rose slowly, his face pale, his frame trembling. "If you expose me, I will lose everything. My companies, my respect, my power. Amara, I beg you, think of your future. Think of what the world will say about you, about us." Amarachi lifted her chin, her tear-streaked face glowing with a new strength. "Let the world say what it must. I will not live a lie anymore." The rain hammered louder. The old house seemed to groan as if straining under the weight of secrets at last uncovered. Kenneth stared at his daughter, his chest rising and falling. And in his eyes, for the first time, There was fear, not of the world, but of losing her. He whispered hoarsely, "Amara, if you go through with this, you may never forgive me, and I may never forgive myself." Amarachi's voice cracked, but her resolve was clear. Maybe forgiveness will come one day, but first the truth must come. The air grew heavier, and as the rain poured, father and daughter sat staring at each other, knowing the next step would change everything. The storm raged through the night, but Amarachi did not sleep. She sat by her window, clutching her uncle's letters, her mind spinning with every word. By dawn, her eyes were swollen from tears, but her heart was firm. The truth could no longer live in shadows. When morning came, she asked Michael to bring her his phone. She sat at her desk, the bundle of letters spread before her like sacred scripture. With trembling hands, she began to read them aloud, recording her voice. Her uncle's words were heartbreaking, letters filled with pain, betrayal, and pleas for justice. "Brother, why did you take what was mine? Why leave me in the streets while you fed on the wealth of my dreams?" Tears streamed down Amarachi's face as she spoke into the recorder. "This is the story of Chijoke Williams, the man you all called mad. But he was not mad, he was broken by betrayal. And the man who betrayed him is my father, Chief Kenneth Johnson." When she finished, her hands shook. She sent the recording anonymously to 3 journalists she trusted, men and women who had once written kindly of her before her accident. Then she sat back, her chest heaving. The silence was suffocating. Hours passed. Then, just before noon, Michael rushed into her room, his face pale. "Madam, it has begun." He held up his phone. Headlines blazed across the screen. "Billionaire Chief Kenneth Johnson accused of betraying brother, causing his madness. Paralyzed daughter exposes father's darkest secret." The madman of Oberland was no madman after all. Amarachi's heart pounded. It was out. The truth was finally out. From the courtyard below, shouts echoed. Crowds were already gathering outside the mansion gates, journalists waving cameras, angry voices demanding answers. Inside, Chief Kenneth stormed through the halls, his phone pressed to his ear, shouting at board members, threatening lawyers, cursing journalists. Sweat drenched his forehead. His empire was crumbling in real time. At last he burst into Amarachi's room, his eyes blazing like fire. "Amara, what have you done?" Her body shook, but her voice was calm. "I set the truth free. You can no longer chain it." Kenneth staggered, clutching his chest as though her words were daggers. "Do you realize what you've done? They will strip everything from me. The government will investigate, the companies will fall. Do you want to see your father destroyed before your eyes?" Her tears glistened, but her gaze was steady. "I wanted to see my father saved. But you chose your empire over your brother, your lies over your daughter. This destruction is not mine. It is yours." Outside, the chants grew louder. "Justice for Chijoke. Justice for the madman." Kenneth's knees buckled. He slumped into a chair, his chest heaving. His empire was slipping like sand through his fingers. Amarachi rolled closer, her voice soft but cutting. "You once said everything you did was for me. But Daddy, the only thing I ever wanted was the truth. And you gave it too late." His eyes filled with tears. He reached for her, but she wheeled back, shaking her head. The pounding on the gates grew heavier. Journalists shouting questions, cameras flashing. The guards struggled to hold them back. Kenneth buried his face in his hands. For the first time in decades, the man who commanded men like a king wept like a child. Amarachi turned away, whispering to herself, "Uncle Chijoke, the world knows your name now. You are no longer the madman of Oberland. You are the man who was wronged." Her tears fell silently, and as the gates finally burst open under the weight of the crowd, Amarachi knew her life and her father's would never be the same again. The mansion gates could no longer hold the storm. Reporters poured in like a flood, their cameras flashing, their voices overlapping in a frenzy. "Chief Kenneth, is it true you betrayed your brother?" "Madam Amarachi, Is this why you've been silent all these years? Tell us about the madman of Oberland. Guards shouted, trying to push them back, but the crowd was relentless. Some were neighbors, some were strangers, but all were hungry for answers. Inside, Chief Kenneth stumbled into the living room, his face pale, his agbada hanging loose on his shoulders. He shouted at the guards, "Get them out! Get them out now!" But his voice cracked, and even the guards hesitated. The world outside was stronger than the power inside. Amarachi sat quietly in her wheelchair, the bundle of letters on her lap, her face streaked with tears but lit with quiet resolve. The cameras turned to her. "Madam Amarachi, is it true your father ruined his own brother? Why did you reveal this now?" Her lips trembled, but her voice rang clear. "Because the truth is the only thing stronger than lies. My uncle, Chijok Williams, was not a madman. He was a victim, and his story will not be buried." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The journalists scribbled furiously, their cameras flashing brighter. Kenneth's knees buckled. He collapsed onto the couch, his chest heaving, his head buried in his hands. "No, no! This cannot be happening." The news spread like wildfire. By evening, every television station, every radio broadcast, every online blog in Lagos carried the story. Anchors spoke with grave voices. The shocking revelation that the billionaire chief Kenneth Johnson betrayed his brother has shaken the nation. In the streets of Oberland, where Chijok once danced, people gathered. They lit candles, holding a vigil for the man the world had mocked. Old women prayed, young men sang softly. A traitor whispered, "So he was not mad. He was a man broken by lies." Meanwhile, in the boardrooms of Victoria Island, Kenneth's empire trembled. Investors pulled out. Calls went unanswered. Contracts were frozen. His name, once golden, was now poison. At home, Kenneth sat in the dark, a glass of brandy untouched at his side. His phone rang endlessly. Politicians, partners, enemies smelling blood, but he answered none. His empire was falling brick by brick, and he knew there was no saving it. Amarachi wheeled into the living room, the candlelight from outside casting her face in a soft glow. She looked at her father, broken and small, a shadow of the man he had been. Her voice was soft, heavy with both sorrow and strength. "Daddy, the world is watching, but I am still your daughter. Tell me, what do you want me to do now?" He lifted his head slowly, his eyes red and swollen. His lips trembled. I want my brother back, but he is gone. And I want your forgiveness, but I know I do not deserve it." Amarachi's tears slipped silently down her cheeks. She whispered, "Uncle Chijok is gone, but his truth lives, and maybe one day forgiveness will come. But tonight all we have is ashes." Kenneth broke into sobs, clutching his chest. His empire was gone, his brother gone, his daughter's love hanging by a thread. Outside, the chants of the crowd grew louder, echoing through the night. "Justice for Chijok! Justice for Chijok!" And Amarachi knew the story was no longer theirs to control. It now belonged to the world. Days turned into weeks. Lagos could not stop talking. Newspapers splashed Kenneth's downfall across their front pages. "Empire of Lies," one headline read. "From billionaire to betrayer," screamed another. The Johnson mansion, once a palace of pride, now stood like a fortress under siege. Guards left. Friends vanished. Politicians who once bowed at Kenneth's feet now whispered his name like a curse. And yet, in the very streets where Chijok once danced in rags, people gathered every evening. They sang the lullaby he hummed, their voices trembling with sorrow. They called him not madman anymore, but the broken brother. His story became a warning, a parable whispered in markets and bus stops alike. Amarachi sat by her window, her hands resting on her lap. Her body remained paralyzed, but her spirit had found a strange strength. She whispered to herself, "Uncle, the world remembers you now. You are no longer lost." Her father sat alone in the study, the chest still open on the floor, papers strewn about like skeletons of his past. His eyes were hollow. Every so often, he whispered Chijok's name, as if trying to call back a ghost. One evening, Amarachi wheeled herself into the garden. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. The air was heavy, but peaceful. She remembered the last words Chijok spoke at the railway line. Don't let him win. Open the box. She had opened it. The truth had been freed. But freedom came with a price. Her father was ruined. Her family name was ashes. And her legs, still lifeless. Michael stood quietly behind her, his voice soft. Madam, was it worth it? Her tears glistened in the fading light. Yes, because silence would have killed me long before paralysis did. Now the world carries my uncle's story, and my heart, though broken, is free. From the mansion, she heard her father's sobs drifting into the night. The bittersweet wind carried both her pain and her strength. As the sky darkened, Amarachi whispered the lullaby her uncle once sang. Her voice cracked, but it carried through the garden. For the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't singing for herself, but for a soul set free. And somewhere, in the rustling trees and the quiet air, she could almost hear him dancing again. Wild, free, no longer mad, but whole. The story of the madman and the billionaire's daughter had ended. But the lesson would live on forever. Truth may break families, but lies will bury them.